After Helen Markham's encounter, Oswald flees, and the next person to see him is a fellow by the name of Ted Calloway. Ted Calloway is the next person to see him. Now, Ted Calloway was the owner of a used car lot on the corner of Patton and Jefferson Boulevard. And if you look on this map here, you can see where Oswald is walking here. Okay, right down Patton Avenue, and this is Jefferson Boulevard. So take a look up here so you understand. So he's walking down Patton towards Jefferson. This used car lot is on the corner of Patton and Jefferson Boulevard. And what happened is Ted Calloway heard the sound of gunshots, so what did he do? He went to the sound of the firing, is what he did. And he encountered Oswald also on Patton Street. So as he's walking down Patton Street towards Jefferson Boulevard, towards the guy's used car lot, Calloway runs into him. And I've got an asterisk there where Calloway ran into him. And as Oswald was heading down Patton Street towards Jefferson, according to Calloway, he was holding a gun, quote, in the raised pistol position. So he didn't have it at his side, he actually was walking with it in the raised pistol position. And Calloway shouted to Oswald, "Hey man, what the hell is going on?" He didn't know what was going on. So this guy's walking toward him as he's walking from his used car lot up Patton Street, and the guy's got the gun in what Calloway described as the raised pistol position. And Calloway shouted at Oswald, he said, "Hey man, what the hell is going on?" Oswald muttered some response that Calloway really didn't hear, and he immediately turned west down an alley. And you can see on this map I gave you the turn he makes down the alley. So he confronts Calloway and turns down the alley. Okay? What did Calloway do after his encounter with Oswald, do you think? No, he didn't follow him. It's a good guess. What did he do? He went to the place where he thought the shot was. He went to the scene of the shooting, and he didn't know that Temple Bowley had already informed the police of Tippett's shooting. So he walks up there. Tippett is still laying in front of the vehicle, and so what does Calloway do? He gets on the patrol car's radio and calls for help as well. So Calloway confronts Oswald, walks up Patton Street, sees the fallen officer J.D. Tippett. He also, not knowing that Temple Bowley already called it in, he also gets on the radio to call for help. And when he did that, someone on the other end of the radio said someone had already called in the shooting. Please stay off that radio. The police were on their way. You know what Calloway did then? This is 1963. He picked up Tippett's gun, which was laying on the ground, and hailed down a taxi cab that was driven by William Scoggins. So he picks up Tippett's gun and hails down a taxi cab driven by William Scoggins. And you know what they do? They go look for Oswald. They go look for the murderer. Vigilante justice in Oak Cliff. That's what they do. Believe it or not. Well, meantime, Oswald is fleeing down this alley I talked about. And he gets in the back of a Texaco gas station. And what does he do? He discards his light jacket there. And I put an asterisk in the alley where Oswald discards his light colored jacket, which is later found. So he's fleeing down the alley and takes off his light colored jacket and throws it in the back of the Texaco gas station. And then he gets on Jefferson Boulevard and heads south as he's hearing police sirens. So Oswald continues to flee down the alley behind Jefferson Boulevard. He leaves his light jacket in the back of a Texaco gas station, and then heads south and gets on Jefferson Boulevard, heading south, hearing police sirens. So he's walking down Jefferson Boulevard, this way. Okay? Well, he gets nervous when he hears these police sirens, and so he ducks in front of Hardy's Shoe Store, which was located at 213 Jefferson Boulevard. So as he's walking south on Jefferson Boulevard, he hears these police sirens, and he gets nervous, and he ducks into the front of Hardy's Shoe Store, which was located at 213 Jefferson Boulevard. Now picture these stores, kind of like you see them here in Worland. Instead of just the building being flat and you just open the door to get in, they have an indentation, you know what I'm saying? Where you walk down the sidewalk and then you walk in 2 or 3 feet and then open the door, okay? That's what he ducked into. So the next person that's going to see Lee Harvey Oswald is this fellow right here, Johnny Brewer, who is an employee, a salesman at Hardy's Shoe Store. So he'll be the next person to see Oswald. Does he go into the store, Oswald? No. He ducks into that corridor because he heard those police sirens. Brewer, not knowing who this guy is or what's going on, steps out and looks out the front of the store, and he sees Oswald standing in the recessed area in front of the store. So in other words, here's the door to get in and here's the recessed area. He's kind of standing by the door here, back off the street where he's kind of protected from being seen. And I'll show this to you in a bit. So as Brewer looked out the window of Hardy's Shoe Store, he sees Oswald standing in the recessed area outside the storefront. And Brewer was later quoted as saying about Oswald, quote, "He looked scared and his shirt tail was not tucked in, as if he had been running." But he didn't know who he was. Okay? No idea. But he knew something was up because sirens were going. Well, Brewer watches Oswald as he leaves that store entrance area, turns right, and heads down Jefferson Boulevard. Well, what Brewer does is he steps out of the store and watches Oswald as he walks down the street to see what this guy's going to do. So Brewer watches Oswald leave the store entrance and turn right down Jefferson Boulevard, and then Brewer steps out of the store and witnesses Oswald enter the nearby Texas Theater at 1:40 p.m. So Oswald walks down the street, Brewer's watching this the whole time, and he watches him turn and go into the Texas Theater, which is a movie theater, at 1:40 p.m. If you're interested, there is the poster that you saw at the Texas Theater at that time. It was a double feature. War is Hell and Cry of Battle were the two movies being shown. That's the movie poster from War is Hell. Now, who's the star of that? Can you read that, Brooke? Whose name's biggest toward the bottom right-hand corner? What's that?
I don't know.
No. Let's see here. Oh, it's not the biggest one. Baines Barron. You see Baines Barron on the bottom? Baines Barron was kind of the star of the movie, War is Hell. It's a little off the cuff, but it's a good story. Ironically, Baines Barron, who is the star of War is Hell, had the exact same birthday as President Kennedy. Had the exact same birthday as President Kennedy. So, the Texas Theater was showing a double feature that day. One was called War is Hell, the other was called Cry of Battle, and War is Hell was a Korean War drama that starred Baines Barron, who ironically had the same exact birthday as President Kennedy. Well, Brewer, seeing Oswald walk into the Texas Theater, decides he's going to follow him down there. Okay, he's going to see what's going on. Now picture this in your mind. When he gets to the theater, he asked the cashier, the lady that's taking tickets for people to go into the movie, "Did you sell a ticket to that man that just went into the theater?" And she said she did not. She actually left her post, and I'll show you that post. She left her ticket booth and went out to the curb to see what was going on with all the sirens, and Oswald walked in behind her and just simply snuck into the Texas Theater. And Brewer asked her, did that guy stop and pay for a ticket that just went to the theater? She goes, no, I didn't see him. I was out at the curb seeing what was going on. Well, Oswald entered the theater and he walked right by Warren Burroughs. Walked right by him. Warren Butch Burroughs. And what Warren Butch Burroughs was doing, that guy up there in the tie, is he was stocking the candy shelf in the concessions. And he did not see Oswald even come in. Yeah. Oh, Julia Postal, did I not tell you? Yeah, Julia Postal, I'm sorry, was the ticket taker. Julia Postal, yeah? So I'll back up. At the theater, Brewer asked cashier Julia Postal if she had sold a ticket to the man that had just got into the theater. She said she had not. She actually had left her post on the ticket window and was at the curb in front of the theater, curious on what was going on with the police sirens. So Oswald enters the theater. He passes right by Warren Butch Burroughs, doesn't see him, who was stocking the candy shelf. And after her conversation with Johnny Brewer about this person that snuck into the theater without paying, taking into consideration these police sirens, what does Julia Postal do? Calls the police. And she tells them, hey, she uses Brewer's description of this man and says, hey, something's not right here. I hear police sirens, and this guy just snuck into the theater real sneakily, and this is what he looked like. Well, police, who were not looking for the assassin of President Kennedy, who were they looking for in Oak Cliff? The guy that shot Tippit. So it did not take long for those police officers to get to that theater because they were upset because an officer had been killed. So when you think about it, they weren't rushing there to arrest the assassin of John F. Kennedy. They were rushing there to see if this guy was the guy that shot their fellow police officer at 10th and Pat. Well, at 1:48 p.m., 6 police cars and 16 police officers arrived at the Texas Theater. I mean, they are not happy campers. They're hoping to find the guy that shot their fellow officer. So at 1:48 p.m., 6 police cars and 16 police officers arrived at the Texas Theater. Among those 16 officers were the following: Sergeant Gerald Hill, Investigator Ray Hawkins, Police Detective Paul Bentley, and Patrolman Nick McDonald. Among the 16 officers that arrived were Police Sergeant Gerald L. Hill, Police Investigator Ray Hawkins, Police Detective Paul Bentley, and Police Officer M.N. McDonald. Just telling you kids something, you do not find all 4 of these signatures in one place ever. That is a priceless piece of memorabilia there. Now, before the police arrived, Johnny Brewer actually went into the theater and was standing behind the stage next to the back exit door. So Brewer followed this man, Lee Harvey Oswald, into the theater, and Brewer was standing behind the stage of the theater by the back exit door, which would go out to an alley. So he was kind of in the back, he was behind the stage of the theater, trying to kind of scope out where this guy might have gone. Does that make sense? Think about our little theater, where this guy would be, in the back of the theater. And he just happened to be by a back exit door that went into the alley. Well, Brewer hears noises outside the exit door in the alley, so he opens the door. So Brewer has entered the theater, he's gone to the back of the stage, he's by a back exit door to the alley, and he hears noises outside the exit door, and he opens the door. When he opens the door, police investigator Ray Hawkins grabbed him, he didn't know who he was, and stuck a shotgun on him. A little scary for poor Johnny Brewer, but that's what happened. So when Brewer heard noises outside the exit door, he opened the door, and police investigator Ray Hawkins grabbed him, and held a shotgun on him. Well, what did Brewer have to do quickly? I explained identify himself. And when he did, and Hawkins was comfortable, he was who he was, said he was, he asked Brewer, is this guy still in the theater? This guy that snuck in, is he still here? And Brewer acknowledged that he saw him, as only were about 16 people watching the show. So it's not like he had to pick him out of a huge crowd. They only had like 16 people watching. Okay? So Brewer acknowledged that the man was still in the theater, in which approximately 16 people were seated. So these guys are standing kind of in front of the stage. You know, the movie's being played up here. People are, you're the audience, and I'm the police officer kind of standing behind the stage looking out to see if I can find Lee Harvey Oswald. Well, it was police officer M.N. McDonald that asked Brewer to point Oswald out to him. You see him out there? If you do, point him out to me. So they're standing in front of the stage looking out. And it's fairly dark. I mean, you're in a movie theater. Where Brewer looked, and pretty soon he spotted Oswald and pointed Oswald out to Officer M.N. McDonald. There he is. And Oswald was sitting in the rear of the theater. And there were three aisles. Seats here, seats here, seats here. And then your walkways, like a theater, okay? Oswald was in the center aisle. 3 rows from the back, 5th seat in. So he was in the center aisle, 3 rows from the back, and the 5th seat in. Now picture this in your mind. Hawkins, Officer Hawkins, walks up this side of the aisle. McDonald walks up this side of the aisle. So Hawkins walks up the right side of the theater aisle from the front, and McDonald approaches Oswald from the left side. What's Oswald doing this time? When he watches these police officers approaching, he stood up and started to exit. He was going to try to get out. But he knew he couldn't, so he stopped and sat again in the 2nd seat in. Okay? So when Officer Hawkins walked up the right side of the aisle and McDonald approached Oswald from the left side of the aisle, as Oswald watched these police officers approach him, he started to get up and exit the row, but decided to sit down again, this time in the 2nd seat. At 1:50 p.m., Officer McDonald approaches Oswald and asked him to stand up. 1:50 p.m., Officer M.N. McDonald confronts Oswald and asks him to stand up. McDonald asked him to stand. This guy right here. Says he's in the 5th seat in. Yep, he walked in. Yep. When Officer McDonald asked him to stand up, Oswald blurted out, quote, "Well, it's all over now." And what does Oswald do after he says, "Well, it's all over now"? He punches Officer McDonald in the face and reaches for his .38, which he has hidden in his waistband. So he says, "Well, it's all over now," punches McDonald, and then pulls the .38 caliber pistol out of his waistband. Now, Callan's going to be Oswald, so stand up. Now, this is an incredible story. He pulls the pistol out, go ahead, and he's going to fire it. It's a revolver that you just pull the trigger. You don't cock it, it's not, you just pull the trigger. So as he pulls the trigger, what does the hammer do? It goes back. And as McDonald sees that hammer, he grabs at the gun, he grabs like this, the hammer comes down and hits his hand, keeping it from firing. Otherwise, he shoots him right in the chest. True story. So So if he pictures something, he punches McDonald. Go ahead, don't hit me though. I go back, pull out the gun, it cocks it back, it goes back, he grabs it just in time that the hammer comes down and hits McDonald on this part of his hand, keeping the weapon from firing. And it was pointed right at McDonald's chest. Yep.
Did the police have any sort of, like, protective where, like, police were kept wearing out, didn't have anything?
Not in those days. Now, as the gun's hammer strikes McDonald's hand, preventing him from getting shot, Officer Paul Bentley reaches back and gives Oswald a good one right across the head. Punches him right in the head. Keep in mind of that, because that'll come up later. So after this struggle with Oswald, in which the gun's hammer struck McDonald's hand, preventing him from getting shot, police officer Paul Bentley reaches back and gives Oswald the old haymaker right to the head. Bentley, Paul Bentley. Well, the rest of the police officers come up there, not all of them, but as he's being subdued by police officers in the theater, he keeps yelling, "I'm not resisting arrest. I'm not resisting arrest." Well, that's all he was doing. But that's the mentality, and this is just more things we'll talk about. So as they are subduing this guy and arresting this guy for attempting to kill a police officer, without doubt, he's yelling, "I'm not resisting arrest. I'm not resisting arrest." So, Gerald Hill, everybody has a part in this it seems like. Gerald Hill handcuffs Oswald, takes him out of the theater to a waiting police car that would take him to police headquarters in downtown Dallas. Okay? Want to see all this?
Yeah.
I'm going to see it. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show it to you in real time. This is Blake Kroger's and my trip, and I'll take you down the exact place he went. So. Okay, if you get the lights and door for me, please.